Never Meant to Be. Social and romance novel. Written by Zen Raf. Available on KDP Amazon. Chapter 7. Part 1. The Present. The room was dim, lit only by the single wall-mounted tube light that buzzed faintly, casting long shadows across the cracked walls and scuffed tiles. The night outside had gone quiet again. Kolhapur had wound down completely, as if even the air was holding its breath. Preeti sat on the edge of Rakesh's small bed, her eyes red, lips trembling, the fabric of her clothes wrinkled from where her hands had been nervously fidgeting with it. Her satchel lay forgotten on the floor. Rakesh knelt before her, both hands gently cupping her shoulders, trying to steady her trembling body. His expression was one of quiet concern, soft brows drawn together, mouth slightly parted like he wanted to say something but couldn't find the words. Across the room, Hari sat slouched on the lone wooden chair, shirtless, one leg propped on the other. His wrist twisted as he glanced at his watch, then back at Preeti with genuine worry etched across his face. "Preeti, what are you doing here? At this hour?" Hari asked, his voice low, but not unkind. "It's almost 12 in the night." Preeti sniffled, not answering right away. Her body still rocked slightly, like it hadn't realized yet that the danger had passed. Rakesh gave her shoulder a light squeeze, then rubbed a small circle with his thumb. She glanced at him, and the look in his eyes gave her the courage to speak. He was acting weird the whole day, she finally said. Her voice was shaky, thin as thread. "Uttam. Since the moment I walked into the restaurant today." Hari leaned forward, elbows resting on his knees. Rakesh didn't move. He just nodded, encouraging her silently. Preeti continued, voice faltering between breaths. He kept staring. Not like before. This time it was different. There was something off. He wouldn't stop looking even when I caught him. Like he didn't care, I noticed. Rakesh's jaw tightened slightly, but he said nothing. "He followed me into the storage room when I went to get the order slips," she said. "Stood too close. Said something like, 'What's going on between me and Rakesh?' I laughed it off, just to avoid making a scene." Hari muttered under his breath, "Asshole." Preeti wiped her cheeks with her sleeve and kept going. Then later, he kept finding excuses to come near me. Said stupid things. Creepy things. At one point, he brushed past me, pretending it was by mistake. But I could tell it wasn't. She looked down, the shame she shouldn't have had to carry weighing down her voice. I didn't say anything. I just wanted to finish my shift and get out of there. She paused. The room was dead silent. But when I left, I felt someone behind me. I kept looking back. Nothing. But it didn't stop. My skin knew he was there even if my eyes didn't. Hari shifted in the chair, legs tense now. When I sat at the bus stop, I kept staring at the street. I told myself I was overthinking. But then, he stepped out. From the dark, he had something worse in mind. I know it. Her breath caught. It was Uttam. Just staring. Walking toward me. Slow. Like he was enjoying it. She swallowed hard. Then a bus came. It wasn't even my route. But I got on anyway. I didn't care where it was going. I just needed to get away. Silence fell again, heavy with realization. Rakesh lowered his eyes for a moment, then looked at her again, voice quiet but firm. "We should report him." Hari nodded in agreement. "He's crossed a line, Preeti." But Preeti stiffened. Her eyes widened, and she started shaking her head violently. "No, no, please don't. Please," she said, voice rising slightly. "If we do that, and nothing happens, he'll know I told someone. He'll get worse. He'll get angry." "But what if a Hari started?" "No," she said again. Her voice broke. "No one will believe it. He's never done anything like this before. He'll say I'm lying. They'll laugh. Or worse, do nothing. And he'll come after me. I live alone." The room felt even smaller now. The danger still lurked in Preeti's eyes. The shadow hadn't passed. It had only followed her here. Rakesh looked at her, then gently asked, "Should I drop you home?" Again, she shook her head fast, panic rising. "No, I don't want to go back. Not tonight." Hari rubbed his chin. "Do you have a friend? Someone you could stay with?" "All my friends are in hostels. They don't allow visitors after dark," she whispered. "It's too late. No one will come now." Rakesh thought for a moment, then offered, "Then you can sleep here. On the bed. I'll stay in Hari's room tonight." Hari made a small grunt of protest, but before he could say anything, Rakesh nudged him hard in the ribs with his elbow. Hari blinked, then cleared his throat. Yeah, yeah, it's fine. I've got space. Remembering the mess in his room. But Preeti's body tensed again. I I don't want to sleep alone. Rakesh hesitated, then nodded slowly. Okay, then I'll stay too. I'll sleep on the floor. It's fine. Hari looked at them both, sighed, then stood and padded out, muttering, don't let her out of your sight. Just in case. When the door clicked shut, the room fell quiet again. Rakesh pulled out a futon from the wardrobe, laid it down neatly on the floor beside the bed. Preeti sat, watching him. I'm sorry, he said suddenly. It's a small room. Preeti shook her head, her voice soft now. It's warm. That's what matters. He offered a small smile, then lowered himself onto the futon. She shifted on the bed, lying down with the pillow bunched under her head. They both stared at the ceiling. Preeti let her thoughts wander. Rakesh, why do I feel safe around you? Like the world outside can't touch me here. Her eyes fluttered shut, her body still tense, but not alone. Meanwhile, Rakesh lay silently on the floor, eyes open and uninvited. Hina's face drifted into his thoughts, her voice, her perfume, her smile. Two names, two hearts, one ceiling between them, and the quiet weight of a night not yet over. Part 2. The past. The lake shimmered beneath the dying glow of the afternoon sun, its surface painted with streaks of orange and gold. A light breeze brushed over the water, rustling the leaves of the tall bouncing trees that lined the narrow walking path. Couples strolled slowly, hands interlinked, children darted past in laughter, and elderly men stood quietly, feeding puffed rice to the birds that swirled overhead in wide, hungry circles. Rakesh walked slowly down the gravel path, his sandals scuffing softly beneath him. His shirt clung slightly to his back, damp from the walk under the sun. He looked around with furrowed brows, searching for someone in the crowd of relaxed strangers. Every few seconds, his eyes scanned the benches, his lips slightly parted, his breath shallow, not from the walk, but the weight inside his chest. Then he saw her. Hina sat alone on the bench facing the lake, her long black hair tied back in a low bun, a beige shirt wrapped close to her frame by a scarf folded over her chest. Her back was straight, arms crossed loosely, eyes fixed on the still water as if watching something only she could see. The falling light hit the side of her face, drawing a glow over the sharp angle of her cheekbone, but her expression was unmoved. Stoic. Distant. Rakesh's face softened the moment he saw her. His shoulders dropped, as if he'd been holding them up for hours. He walked towards her slowly, each step tentative, like he was unsure whether she would disappear if he moved too fast. He sat down beside her without saying anything. A foot of silence lay between them. Hina didn't even glance at him. Rakesh looked down at his hands, then at her, opened his mouth, closed it, waited. A flock of birds rose from the far end of the lake, flying across the sky like ink spilled across canvas. Finally, he found the courage. My parents, he began, voice low, nearly swallowed by the wind. They weren't supposed to come that day. Hina didn't react. Her eyes stayed fixed on the lake, but her bottom lip gave a faint tremble. I didn't know what to do. They showed up, sat there, judging everything with their eyes. I panicked. Her chin tightened. Her eyes shimmered, but she said nothing. I didn't mean to. He swallowed hard. I didn't mean to treat you like that, Hina. Her breath hitched. Then she whispered, like what? Rakesh looked away, ashamed. Like a stranger, she continued, voice rising just slightly. Like a shameful secret? He turned to her, but she still wouldn't look at him. The tears now had fully welled in her eyes. Hina, he said gently, his own voice beginning to shake. Do you even have any feelings for me, Rakesh? She asked suddenly, her voice cracking as she turned to him, eyes wet, face trembling. Or was this all just for fun? Rakesh's mouth went dry. I don't know how to answer that. She scoffed, blinking rapidly. Rakesh instinctively leaned in, moving closer on the bench. Slowly, he reached out and took her hand in both of his. I'm sorry, he whispered. But Hina jerked her hand away sharply. Don't touch me, she snapped. People nearby turned to look. A man with his child paused mid-step. A couple slowed their pace. Rakesh's eyes darted around. He laughed nervously, pretending like they were just having a lively conversation. Yar, don't be so dramatic, he whispered quickly through clenched teeth. People are watching. Oh, now you care, Hina hissed, her voice rising again. You don't want people to see me with you? Is that it? Rakesh's heart pounded. Hina, please. Is that why you didn't even introduce me to your parents? She demanded, teeth clenched, eyes blazing. Why did you act like I was just some random woman sitting at your table? People were watching now. An older man leaned slightly to hear better. Rakesh's ears turned red. He leaned in closer, whispering fiercely, Hina, please, not here. Oh, now you beg me to be quiet, she said mockingly, leaning toward him. Still scared of what they'll think, right? Still ashamed of me. No, he said quickly, shaking his head. No, that's not true. He reached out again, this time holding both her hands firmly. Please, just tell me where your car is. Hina frowned, tried to pull away again, but he didn't let go. Gently, he began searching her purse, fumbling through the clutter inside until he found the car keys. She stared at him, half in disbelief, half in heartbreak. Rakesh looked at her, pleading. She nodded in the direction of the lot, lips tight. Over there. Rakesh stood and gently took her hand again. Hina didn't move at first. He turned, facing her fully. With both his hands, he gripped her left arm, not harshly, but with enough strength to say, I need you to come with me. Her breath caught in her throat. Then slowly, reluctantly, she stood. They walked together, him leading her past the curious stairs. The noise of the lake faded behind them. In the car, the doors shut with a dull thunk. Rakesh started the engine and drove, both hands tight on the steering wheel. The sun had dipped lower now, casting longer shadows on the road. Rakesh wanted to tell Hina the difference in their worlds. He came from an entirely different family, where he would have felt embarrassed to hold Hina's hand, even if she was his lawful wife. It wasn't about shame, it was about boundaries. It was about how much someone is used to something. And between these two wheels of Hina and Rakesh's father, Rakesh was stuck, being grinded, while both of them were ignorant of his torment. Every now and then, he glanced at her. Hina sat rigid, arms folded, eyes on the road ahead, but somewhere far beyond it. And in the stillness between them, regret hung like a weight too heavy to name. Part 3. The past continue. The car rolled to a quiet stop in front of Rakesh's building, the engine ticking as it cooled under the soft orange hue of early dusk. The sky had dimmed into a soft pink, birds quiet now, and the streets around were almost still. The old tiled roof above his rented room peeked over the gate like a shy child hiding behind an elder's legs. Rakesh switched off the ignition and sat there for a moment, both hands resting loosely on the wheel. He looked to his side. Hina hadn't moved. She sat perfectly still in the passenger seat, her seatbelt still on, eyes glued to the windshield. Her face was pale and tired, but her eyes shimmered with the faint trace of tears still stubbornly clinging to the corners. Her breathing was calm, but beneath the surface, Rakesh could feel the storm that was still very much alive. Hina, he said, voice soft like he was speaking to a bird resting on his hand. We're here. She didn't blink. Her expression remained unreadable. Rakesh opened his door and stepped out. The air outside felt cooler now, but his shirt still clung to his chest. He walked around to her side and opened the door. She didn't react. With gentle urgency, he leaned in. Let me, he whispered, as his hand reached across her body. The seatbelt clicked softly. Their faces came dangerously close. He could feel her breath against his cheek, her sweet smell, warm and uneven. He didn't move away. Instead, his eyes found hers. And there it was, a daring sadness. The pain of having loved and not being loved the same way back. Or maybe the pain of not knowing. Hina looked at him, eyes unwavering. She didn't flinch as he hovered, her glare holding something vulnerable behind its strength. A flicker of something real. But she still didn't say a word. Rakesh straightened up slowly and held out a hand. Hina stared at it for a moment, then placed her fingers in his, wordlessly. They walked up the narrow stairway together. The air inside the building smelled of old plaster and rain-soaked wood. A dog barked in the distance. Somewhere, utensils clanked in a neighbor's kitchen. Inside the room, the ceiling fan rotated with a sleepy squeak. A single cot sat pressed against the wall, its bedsheet slightly wrinkled. A steel cupboard, a plastic water jug, and a few books formed the rest of the decor. Rakesh led her to the bed, his hand never leaving hers, and made her sit gently on the edge. Then he knelt before her, like a devotee at a shrine. He looked up at her, eyes questioning. Tell me, Hina, he said softly, why are you crying? Hina looked down at him, but said nothing. I know why, Rakesh continued. He sighed. I want you to tell me. Hina's fingers twitched in her lap. Her lips parted, but no words came. Her eyes were tired of explaining things. Just like Rakesh wanted to hear it from her, she wanted him to understand it himself. He waited, then sighed again and lowered his gaze. I like you, Hina, he said quietly, almost as if confessing a crime. I've liked you for a long time. Hina's head lifted slightly. Her brows softened. Her lashes fluttered. Her heart skipped once, and her mouth opened just a bit, but she still didn't speak. Rakesh looked up and caught that fleeting light in her eyes. The glow of something too good to be true. I like you, he said again, tilting his head, staring right into her. More than I can explain. More than I know what to do with. Hina blinked, lips trembling slightly. Say that again, she whispered. Rakesh took a breath. I said, I like you a lot. I think about you when I wake up and before I sleep. I wait to hear your voice every day. I smile when I see your name on my phone. He paused, eyes searching hers. I would love to be able to love you, Hina. Her heart soared. But, he added, his voice suddenly heavy, I don't know if I should. The warmth in her chest stumbled, tilting her head, cutely, searching for answers into his eyes with her shining, glittery, tearful eyes. What do you mean? She asked. Rakesh looked down at the floor. You're you. His voice was tight. You're this strong, brilliant woman who walks into a room and everyone notices. You're successful, independent. You live in a world that's 10 stories above mine. Hina's jaw clenched. I'm just a waiter in a mid-range restaurant in Kolhapur, he continued. I have no savings, no achievements, no future to show. I live in a rented room smaller than your bathroom. I don't want to drag you into my mess. He finally looked up again, and the shame in his eyes made her chest ache. I feel like I'm not enough for you. Like I never will be. Silence. Then Hina leaned forward. She cupped his face with both palms, fingers gently curling around his jaw. Her touch was warm, steady. He froze. She looked at him, not with pity, not with sympathy, but with longing, raw and full. And then, without saying a word, she kissed him. Softly, deeply. A kiss that said all the things words failed to. A kiss that dismissed class, shame, and insecurity. That spoke of how much she had waited to hear those words. How many times she'd imagined him saying them. How none of the rest mattered. When she pulled away, she rested her forehead against his. Her thumb still gently traced his cheekbones. Nothing else matters to me, Rakesh, she whispered. And in that moment, all the noise of the world melted into silence. Art 4. The present. Knock, knock, knock. The sound echoed like thunder in Rakesh's skull. He groaned, eyelids stuck together from heavy sleep, lashes scraping against dry skin as he forced them open. He wasn't in his bed. He was staring at the ceiling, his ceiling, but from a different angle. Cold cement beneath his back, his futon half kicked off under his legs. His brows furrowed. Why am I on the floor? The knocking grew more urgent. Knock, knock, knock. As his mind wrestled with the fragments of yesterday, everything came rushing back like a wave. Preeti arriving at his door in the middle of the night, her breath fast, her eyes wide, Uttam's shadow following her, and her refusal to go back to her room because she lived alone. Her voice still echoed in his head. Please. I can't go back tonight. Rakesh sat up like a spring suddenly uncoiled, breath catching in his throat. His movement stirred the air in the room, and across from him, Preeti, still curled up on his bed, sat up just as quickly. Rakesh. She whispered, her voice soft and urgent. Someone's at the door. Rakesh blinked, eyes finally adjusting. Preeti looked small in his blanket, hands clutched tightly against her chest, her long hair falling over her shoulders in messy waves. Her eyes were wide and a little red from lack of sleep. Another voice came, muffled but familiar. Rakesh. Open up. Rakesh let out a breath. Hurry. Relief washed over him, and he slumped back down for a second. He's coming, quit yapping. He mumbled, rubbing his eyes as he pushed himself up again. But Preeti didn't relax. Her hands were still tight at her chest. She looked more nervous than she should have been if it were just Hari. After all, she knew him, had joked with him before. This wasn't new. Rakesh looked at her, brows lifting. He tilted his head, mouthing, What's wrong? She didn't answer, just lifted her finger slowly and pointed at the door. Then came another voice, this one deep, gravelly, and unmistakably annoyed. What do you mean quit yapping? Rakesh's heart leapt. Shit. He scrambled to get up, grabbing his futon to toss it onto the bed, right over Preeti, not even looking where it landed. She squeaked a little under the pile of blankets. Rakesh. In his panicked sprint toward the door, his toe caught in the edge of the futon, and in a perfect fall, he tripped, flew forward, and landed face first on the floor with a dull thud. Preeti yanked the futon off her head, eyes wide. Are you okay? Her voice was concerned, but she couldn't help the soft chuckle that slipped out. Seeing Rakesh like this, scrambling, flustered, clumsy, unserious, was a side she had never seen at the restaurant. It was oddly endearing. I'm fine, Rakesh hissed, pulling himself up as he limped toward her. You need to hide. I'll go inside the bathroom, she whispered quickly, already slipping off the bed. No, wait. Rakesh stopped her. No. What if he suddenly wants to check the pipes or complain about the flush? He's crazy like that. Preeti paused, eyes darting. Then where? Rakesh opened his old metal wardrobe with a dramatic clang. In here. Come on. She looked at him like he was joking, but he was dead serious. Preeti crawled in without another word, knees tucked to her chest, sitting like a cat hiding from the rain. Her eyes stared up at Rakesh, full of unspoken questions and thinly disguised amusement. He was about to close the door, then paused, remembering something. He opened it again. Preeti looked up, wide-eyed. He tossed the futon over her again. Don't make a sound. She gave a small mock salute and whispered, meow. Rakesh shut the door just as the knocking intensified. He opened the door to find Mr. Inamdar standing with his cane in one hand, his thick brows arched in suspicion. Hari stood just behind him, grinning like a monkey trying not to laugh, his hands tucked behind his back. About time, Inamdar growled, eyes already darting around Rakesh's face, looking for guilt. Rakesh quickly smiled. Sir. Good morning, sir. Hari leaned in and made a face at Rakesh behind Inamdar's back, mouthing, Where's Preeti? While smirking. Rakesh widened his eyes at him and subtly waved no, jerking his thumb away in a vague direction. Mr. Inamdar crossed his arms. We're throwing a small party today. At my house. Be there at 6. I need someone on my side. Oh yes, of course. Absolutely. Rakesh said quickly, nodding so hard his neck almost cracked. I'll be there, sir, definitely. The eagerness was too much. Too fast. Mr. Inamdar squinted. Why so long to open the door? You look nervous. Rakesh laughed, fake and high-pitched. Me? Nervous? Never, sir. I always look like this. Inamdar shoved past him without warning, cane tapping aggressively on the floor. Then you won't mind me having a quick look. Sir, really, there's no need. But it was too late. He was already in. Hari slipped in behind, whispering, You're dead, under his breath, trying not to giggle. Rakesh and Hari made frantic eye contact. In those quick gestures, Rakesh pointed toward the wardrobe just as Inamdar's gaze fell on it. What's in there? He asked, already walking toward it. Just clothes, sir. Shirts, pants, and old D. Clang. He opened the wardrobe. And there she was. Preeti, sitting inside like a small, amused cat. The futon draped over her head. She blinked up at Mr. Inamdar with the calm of someone who had already given up. The old man's eyes widened. His nostrils flared. Rakesh. He pulled back, raised his cane, and whacked Rakesh's shin. Rakesh yelped and hopped back, grabbing his leg. Sir, wait. Whack. Hari got one too. Ouch. I didn't do anything. You were making faces outside. They both ran around the room, trying to dodge the surprisingly quick strikes of the old man's cane. It was like a chaotic dance of grown children, tripping over furniture and squealing like schoolboys. Get out of here. Hiding girls in wardrobes now. What is this, a hotel room? Sir, please. But just as Inamdar raised his cane again, Preeti stepped out from the wardrobe, pulling the futon off her shoulders. She moved between the old man and the two battered boys. Stop, please, she said firmly, holding her arms out. Inamdar halted, startled. She looked up at him, breathing lightly. Please don't hit them anymore. It's not what you think. There was a pause. For the first time in years, Mr. Inamdar blinked at someone and hesitated. His cane lowered slowly, and his eyes narrowed, not in anger, but in confusion. He looked at Preeti, then at Rakesh, then at Hari, then back at Preeti. What the hell is going on here? he muttered. But he didn't raise the cane again. For now. Part 5. The Past. The jazz was mellow, like a hum of smoke curling through the air. It drifted between the tables of the dimly lit restaurant, where the silver cutlery gleamed like tiny sculptures and the candlelight danced in crystal glasses. Soft laughter and the clinking of wine glasses created a background hum of sophistication, an entirely alien world to Rakesh Kare. He sat stiffly across from Hina Vibhut. She looked ethereal. A white dress clung delicately to her skin, with pale blue flowers that seemed almost painted on. Her long hair, gently curled at the ends, rested against her shoulders, catching the faint amber light. Her eyes sparkled, not because of the chandeliers or the candles, but from something within her. Joy, maybe, or freedom. Rakesh couldn't hold his gaze. The moment he looked into her eyes, he felt something tighten in his chest. He glanced away, pretending to observe the chandelier above them, then the fine walls, then the man 2 tables over in a deep gray suit with a gold tie-pin. Everyone here looked like they belonged. Everyone but him. He rubbed his sweaty palms on his pants beneath the table. His formal shirt, a cheap white one with faded blue checks, felt too tight around the collar. It was tucked into trousers that had begun to wear thin at the knees. No blazer, no watch, no polish on his shoes. He forced a smile. This place is fancy. Hina chuckled and nodded, her voice light. Yeah, I guess it is. I love the music here. And the lighting. It's calm. She leaned forward, folding her arms on the table. Her eyes caught his again. You okay? Rakesh cleared his throat. Yeah. Just never been to a place like this. I figured, she said, not unkindly, just stating the obvious. But I'm glad you came. A waiter arrived and handed them both menus. Hina opened hers with ease and scanned through it like she'd done it 100 times. Rakesh opened his too, but the first thing he noticed was the prices 3 digits. Some even 4. His throat dried. The names of the dishes didn't make it any easier. What the hell was duck confit? He shut the menu casually and glanced around again. Waiters in suits, wine being poured, laughter over plates of food he couldn't pronounce. He felt small. I think I'll just get the truffle pasta, Hina said, folding her menu. Rakesh nodded. Same. I'll have that too. Hina raised an eyebrow, smiling. You like truffles? What? Oh yeah. Big fan. He looked away. He felt like a fraud. And worse, a fool. Why had he asked her to choose the place? Why did he think he could keep up with someone like Hina? She was from a different world, rich, confident, educated. He was just a waiter in Kohlhopper with second-hand shoes and borrowed dreams. She reached across the table and held his hand. Her fingers were warm, delicate. Rakesh blinked. Why are you so tense? She asked gently. This isn't work. You can relax. It's just me. Just me. But that was the problem. It was her. There is no way she is just for him. And Rakesh knew, deep down, if he let himself fall for her, it would only end with him getting hurt. She belonged to light. He belonged to the shadows below the feet. But he didn't pull his hand away. Dinner passed with Hina talking about her office, her coworkers, and funny things that happened during meetings. Rakesh laughed along, nodded, inserted the occasional right, and that's crazy. But his eyes kept drifting to the other tables, to the smiles of people who never had to worry about next month's rent. The bill came in a black leather folder. Rakesh grabbed it before Hina could. He looked inside and felt all the blood drain from his face. He reached into his pocket, pulled out his wallet in a rush. His hands trembled. The cash inside was carefully folded for crisp notes, nearly a fifth of his monthly salary. The waiter noticed. As Rakesh fumbled, his wallet slipped from his hand and dropped to the floor with a soft thud. Before he could bend, the waiter swiftly knelt and picked it up, offering it to him with a practiced smile. Rakesh muttered a thank you and fumbled for the cash again, but the waiter was already gone. He turned and saw Hina smiling up at the man, handing him a platinum card with a subtle gesture. Hina, Rakesh began. Shoo. She reached for his hand again, lacing her fingers through his. Let me. I said I'd pay, he said weakly. I know, but I wanted to. There was a softness in her eyes. She leaned forward, gazing at him with a strange intensity that made his chest tighten again. And then, without warning, she stood up, walked around to his side of the table, and bent to her knees beside him. Hina, what are you? Stay still, she whispered. She took out her phone, smiled, and clicked a photo right as she kissed him at the corner of his lips. Rakesh sat frozen. She giggled and whispered, "Don't worry, I won't post it." Yet, later, the night air by the lake was cold, brushing gently against their skin. Streetlights lined the path, casting amber pools of light that shimmered in the rippling water. Beyond that, only darkness and the moonlight. Rakesh walked with his hands in his pockets, looking down, barely hearing Hina's voice. She was talking about the wine, the jazz music, and the dessert. About how she came here with coworkers after the deadlines. He could only nod and say, He was ashamed. Ashamed that she had to pay. Ashamed he even brought her there. Ashamed that he couldn't be the man someone like her deserved. She stopped suddenly and turned to him, annoyed. "What's wrong with you tonight?" "Nothing. You've barely said a word. Not since dinner." "I'm just tired." "Rakesh," she said, stepping closer. "I know when something's bothering you." He forced a smile onto his face. It was weak, and he knew it. He reached out and held her hand. "Really? It's nothing." She stared at him for a moment, her eyes trying to search his. But he gave her nothing to find. Finally, she softened. "Okay." They kept walking. Slowly, her hand slipped around his left arm. She pulled herself close, laying her head gently on his shoulder. Rakesh's heart raced. She spoke in whispers now, about old songs she loved, her father, her dreams of designing buildings that would last centuries. Rakesh nodded, murmuring soft responses. But inside, his thoughts churned. What am I doing? She deserves more than this. More than me. But her warmth on his shoulder, her fingers clutching his arm, her laughter, her smile, her kiss. He couldn't let go, even if it was temporary, even if it was doomed. He wanted to hold this moment just a little longer, just a little more. Part 6. The present. Preeti sat at Rakesh's desk, resting her chin on the back of her hand, staring out the window. The sunlight filtered through the thin cotton curtain, casting long, sleepy shadows on the tiled floor. Beyond the window, coalhopper buzzed softly, distant honks, bicycle bells, a woman yelling at her child in the alley, all mixing with the faint whoosh of breeze brushing against the old window panes. It was a warm morning, but not unpleasant. She wasn't really looking at anything outside. Her thoughts were still back in the morning, caught in the surprise and tension of being discovered in the wardrobe. That morning, the moment Mr. Inamdar pulled the wardrobe doors open and saw her crouching there like a scared cat, time had frozen. Her heart had banged against her ribs. But instead of shouting, Mr. Inamdar had gone completely still. His stick, just moments ago, a furious weapon chasing Rakesh and Hari across the corridor, lowered slowly to the floor. Who are you, girl?" he had asked, his brows furrowed. Before she could answer, Rakesh, panting from the run, had stepped forward and said quickly, "She's my coworker, sir. From the restaurant." But that didn't help. Mr. Inamdar's glare turned sharp, silencing Rakesh with just a look. Why was she in the wardrobe? The old man snapped, his voice now a mixture of anger and confusion. "You boys, what kind of nonsense?" Preeti, realizing the misunderstanding, stepped out fully and adjusted her clothes. No, sir. They didn't put me there," she said firmly. "I came here last night on my own. I was being followed. I didn't know where else to go." "You live alone?" Mr. Inamdar asked, more calmly now. "Yes, and my friend's hostel has strict rules. So, I came to Rakesh. He just offered me a place to sleep. That's all." There was a pause. Mr. Inamdar looked at her, then at the boys behind her. He grunted and turned to go, tapping his stick twice on the ground before calling over his shoulder. "Don't forget the party tomorrow night. You too, girl. You're coming." Preeti had tried to refuse. No, I don't think I should." "Nonsense." Mr. Inamdar barked. "You're invited. Come." End of story. Now. Preeti leaned back in the chair and sighed, letting out a chuckle at that morning. Then, glancing at the bookshelf next to her. The room was small, but cozy, the kind of space that had been lived in with quiet acceptance. The bookshelf was old, maybe passed down, a little tilted at the base, filled with books of all kinds. Dusty old novels, a few neat thrillers, recipe books, a poetry collection, and a tattered copy of English Grammar for All. Some books were stacked on top of each other, as if squeezed in wherever they fit. Next to the shelf was a narrow bed, clean but unmade, with a faded bedsheet covered in blue patterns. A steel bucket sat in one corner near the bathroom door, and on the wall above the bed hung a small cloth bag with a string of safety pins hanging from it. On another wall was a calendar, last year's, still showing December. A plastic chair stood beside the bed, with a crumpled shirt hanging over its back. Preeti stood and walked to the bookshelf, running her fingers over the spines. She pulled out a couple of books, flipped through the pages absently, then put them back. Then she turned, sat back down, and leaned her head on the desk. From the bathroom next door, she could hear Rakesh and Hari talking. "Hey, you used all the shampoo again." Hari's voice came first. "I didn't. It was already half." "Don't lie," Rakesh shot back. "Then maybe a ghost came and bathed last night." Their voices faded and rose again, playful and brotherly. The way they bickered, teased, and talked so freely, it made Preeti smile for a moment. It was a sweet, noisy kind of bond, something she hadn't seen in a long time in Rakesh. Her gaze drifted down to the drawer under the desk. She hesitated. Then, almost involuntarily, she opened it. Inside was a neat stack of pens, an old notepad, and something wrapped in cloth. Under that, a photo frame. She lifted it. The image hit her chest like a surprise slap. Rakesh was there, smiling, the sweetest smile she never could see in person, not the awkward, half-baked smile he wore at work, but a genuine one. His eyes had a kind of shine she hadn't seen before. And next to him was a woman, beautiful, stunning, her face close to his, her lips touching the side of his mouth, her long hair falling like silk over his shoulder. It was the kind of picture you didn't just take with anyone. Preeti stared at it. The woman in the photo was unlike anyone in their world. Her dress, her glow, the way she held Rakesh like he belonged to her. Preeti slowly put the frame back where she found it. She sat there in silence. Something had happened inside her chest. She didn't know what. Discomfort. Tightness. She pressed her palm against her chest and looked down at the floor. She felt off. Not angry. Not sad. But something strange. Why should I care? She thought. He can have a girlfriend. Or whoever she is. Or is she? Perhaps she is the one. Still, the image of the kiss wouldn't leave her head. That woman's soft lips on the side of Rakesh's mouth, his glowing smile. Preeti shook her head lightly, trying to dismiss the feeling crawling inside her. Then she stood up. She walked to the door slowly and closed it. Her movements were quiet, thoughtful, like someone trying not to disturb their own thoughts. She turned toward the bathroom, stepped inside, and gently shut the door behind her. The end. Chapter 8. Part 1. The Present. The morning sun had already climbed higher than it should have by the time Rakesh and Preeti got off the crowded bus. The air was heavy with heat, dust, and the smell of fried snacks from nearby stalls. The streets were busy, with bicycles brushing past, vendors yelling prices, and honking rickshaws competing for space on the road. They walked side by side, the restaurant only a short walk away now, but neither of them spoke immediately. Preeti clutched her small bag tighter, the one she'd borrowed from Rakesh that morning. She wore the same clothes as yesterday, a loose shirt and leggings, slightly creased from having slept in them. Her hair was tied into a bun, a few strands loose, falling against her cheek. Rakesh had offered her his comb, and she had used it with a small, sheepish smile, but still avoided the mirror in his room. Rakesh walked with his hands stuffed inside his trouser pockets, glancing sideways at her every few seconds. He noticed how her eyes stayed low, how her lips were pursed tighter than usual. The street noise felt muted in his ears. Finally, he broke the silence. "You sure you're okay?" he asked, not looking directly at her. Preeti gave a small nod, then said, "Yes." There was a pause. "I mean about Uttam. You really don't want to file a complaint?" His voice was low, cautious. Preeti's steps slowed a little. She looked straight ahead, as if watching the crowd instead of listening to him. "No, it's not that serious." Rakesh frowned. "He followed you, Preeti. That's not nothing." She bit the inside of her lip, then said quietly, "He didn't do anything. Just followed me after work and stood near the bus stop. That's all." "That's not all. That's," he paused, frustrated. "That's enough to make you feel unsafe. That's enough reason." "The police won't do anything, Rakesh," she said quickly. "They'll just ask me uncomfortable questions, and nothing will come out of it. He didn't touch me. He didn't say anything. They'll say he was just standing near me." Rakesh slowed his pace, his brows pressed together. He hated that she had to think like that she'd already played out the whole scenario in her head. But I can at least talk to him, he said. Tell him to back off. Stay away from you. He needs to hear that. Preeti stopped walking. No, she said, sharp enough to make him freeze mid-step. He turned to her, confused. Why not? I don't want you to talk to him, she said, quieter now but firm. Please. There was a strange anxiety in her eyes, like she'd just imagined the aftermath of that confrontation. Rakesh noticed how her fingers were nervously tugging at the corner of her shirt. Rakesh hesitated, then nodded. Okay, I won't. But inside, his thoughts spiraled. Why did she react like that? Is she scared of him? Or scared for me? He'd never told her about Uttam's subtle digs, the way he had once said, she's too nice to hang around people like you. Or how he'd accidentally spilled water near Rakesh's feet when Preeti was watching. There was always this quiet bitterness under Uttam's smile, like a shadow that only Rakesh could see. He glanced at Preeti again. She was walking now, faster than before. Should I tell her? He thought. Would it help her to know? But then he remembered the look on her face just now. The panic, the heaviness behind her eyes. No, it wouldn't help. It would only make her carry more weight than she already did. Thanks, she said softly, breaking the silence again. For not saying anything. Rakesh managed a small smile. Of course. They walked the rest of the way without speaking. But in that silence, their minds were loud. His full of worry, hers full of unfinished thoughts. Each step forward took them closer to the restaurant, to the world where they had to wear their uniforms and smiles again. But something had changed in the space between them, something unsaid, but heavy like steam in the morning air. Part 2. Continue. The old metal bell hanging above the restaurant door let out its familiar chime as Rakesh and Preeti stepped inside. The rush hour had passed, and the dining area was in its lull, a quiet clinking of steel tumblers, a few lingering customers sipping chai, and the occasional echo of utensils from the kitchen. Uttam was behind the counter, pretending to count change, but his eyes shot straight toward the door the moment he heard it. The sight before him made his hands freeze over the cash register. There they were, Rakesh and Preeti, entering together. Preeti's head was slightly lowered, avoiding eye contact with anyone, her lips pressed into a soft line. Rakesh, beside her, had a composed face, but his shoulders were slightly tensed. The two exchanged a quick glance, and as if choreographed, both turned their heads and caught Uttam staring at them. Uttam didn't hide it. His gaze hardened, mouth tightening as his hand slammed the drawer of the register shut. He blinked once, slowly, as if trying to make sense of what he was seeing. Then he looked away angrily. Rakesh gave a long breath and muttered under his breath, "Here we go." Without another word, he turned and walked straight toward Mr. Main's cabin. Continue. Behind the half-closed glass door of the cabin office, Rakesh stood still, back straight, as Mr. Main paced in front of him. "You think you can come to work whenever you feel like it?" Mr. Main barked. "This isn't a college picnic. You, bringing the girl with you like you're both on a date." "No, sir, it's not like," Rakesh started. "I don't care what it's like," the man snapped. "You're supposed to set an example. And if she's new and still learning, you should be the one making sure she comes on time, not the other way around." Rakesh nodded. "Yes, sir. I understand. It won't happen again." Rakesh wanted to change the subject. "You are coming to Mr. Inamdar's party, right?" he asked, hoping to take attention off him. "Not sure yet. I'm busy," Mr. Main, after genuinely considering, then scolding Rakesh, "but don't change the subject." No, I'm not. I really wouldn't make the same mistake again," Rakesh said with a smile. As if I didn't hear that before. Mr. Main stared at him for a second longer, then waved him off with irritation. "Get back to work." As Rakesh stepped out of the cabin, the first thing he saw was Uttam walking down the corridor, shoulders puffed, steps deliberate. He didn't even try to move out of the way. Instead, he brushed past Rakesh with a deliberate shoulder bump, eyes glaring, full of silent accusations. Rakesh paused, clenched his fists briefly, then let out a slow breath. "Don't do anything. She asked you not to. Just leave it." Continue. Back at the counter, Preeti was busy arranging the bills and scribbling notes in the logbook. She saw Rakesh return and quickly turned to him with guilt in her eyes. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "You went in alone and got scolded because of me." Rakesh leaned on the counter beside her, trying to shake it off. Nah, it's fine. I told you to start working. It made sense. Better one of us than both. She gave him a small, grateful smile. Still, sorry. He looked at her and shrugged with a little smile. If it makes you feel better, he said I was a bad example. So, I guess I'm officially a terrible influence. That made her giggle quietly. Later, during lunch, Rakesh went to his usual spot on the stairs at the back of the restaurant, the little corner between the storage door and the exit to the alley. The stairwell smelled of rice sacks and turmeric, and a weak ceiling fan rotated slowly overhead, humming with age. Rakesh was halfway through his lunch when he heard footsteps. He looked up and saw Preeti standing there with her plate. Can I? She asked. He slid over with a nod, making space. They sat together, knees slightly touching on the narrow step, quietly eating. He still hasn't fixed the fan, Preeti said, glancing up. He's waiting for it to fall and hit someone first. Then maybe, Rakesh replied, chewing. Preeti smiled again. A soft pause followed. Then, after gathering a bit of courage, she said, Tom was glaring at me. Rakesh nodded, not surprised. He was glaring at me too. She looked at him, startled. Why you? He didn't answer right away. Just poked at the roti with his fingers. He's just got a problem with me, Rakesh said vaguely. She didn't press, but she looked thoughtful. When they finished eating, Rakesh changed the subject. So, that party, at Mr. Inamdar's place, are you thinking of going? Preeti tilted her head. I don't know. Should I? Why not? Rakesh said, trying to sound cheerful. Free food. Fancy house. It'll be a change. Preeti looked at him. The way he said it, so casually optimistic, made her chest feel lighter. Like maybe, things would be okay. She smiled. You always sound so sure. I fake it well, he said, grinning. They both chuckled, their voices bouncing softly off the narrow stairwell walls. Unseen to them, Uttam stood just around the corner, half hidden behind the storage door. He had followed the sound of their footsteps. His jaw was clenched, lips pressed into a thin, angry line as he listened. Every quiet laugh they shared burned a little more into him. He didn't say a word, but he heard everything. Part 3. The Past. Rakesh's small rented room had a peculiar warmth that the rest of the old building lacked. The walls were a fading cream color, cracked in corners, but clean. The bed was neatly made, covered with a thin cotton sheet. His desk, just below the square window, was cluttered with books, a half-eaten packet of biscuits, and his slowly dying laptop, its humming fan louder than usual this evening. A gentle glow of the setting sun poured in through the window, throwing golden strips across the tiled floor. Outside, sparrows chirped and flitted across the rusted window grills. Rakesh leaned back in his plastic chair, stretching his arms with a long sigh. His spine cracked faintly. He turned his face to the open window, letting the breeze wash over his tired skin. On the bed, behind him, Hina lay on her stomach, flipping through a paperback novel she had found on his shelf. She had taken off her shoes and folded her legs comfortably behind her, like she owned the place, though her perfume made the room feel far richer than it was. Rakesh tilted his chair slightly to glance back at her. Hina, she hummed without looking up. Where do you live? She looked up from the book, raising an eyebrow with a smirk. What? Now you're suddenly interested in my palace. I mean, just wondering, he said, rubbing the back of his neck. Hina shut the book gently and sat up, her eyes dancing with mischief. Want to come see it? Rakesh blinked. No. Sure. Why not? He hesitated, but nodded. All right. Passed. Later. The evening traffic rumbled in the background as Hina's car rolled into the paved entrance of a towering building complex. The glass facade reflected the sky like a mirror, blue and golden streaks of dusk melting across its polished surface. She pulled up near the front. I'll park. You head inside. I'll catch up in 5. Rakesh stepped out slowly, the door shutting behind him with a luxury car's muffled thump. He stood still for a second, staring up at the building. It was dizzyingly tall. Balconies stacked with greenery, windows spotless, and the entrance framed with soft yellow lights like a hotel lobby. He had never seen a place like this from this close. Just as he was about to enter, the security guard stopped him with a curt gesture. Sir, where are you going? I'm with Hina Vibhut. She's parking her car. I'll wait for her inside. The guard didn't move, as if he didn't hear his polite request. Then, "Wait outside, please." Rakesh stood awkwardly, hands in pockets, looking down. People were walking past him. Couples, men in branded shirts, women in elegant dresses. Nobody glanced at him, except the guard, watching. Another resident walked up behind him, a man in a fine white shirt and leather shoes. The guard's face lit up. "Good evening, sir." The gate opened like magic. Rakesh glanced at the guard's returning expression, blank, cold, almost irritated. Then he looked down at his feet. Worn-out sandals. One of the straps slightly frayed. He caught the guard glancing there, too. A wave of shame rolled over him, hot and stinging. He suddenly became too aware of his wrinkled shirt, the cheap cloth of his pants, and the oil stain on his sleeve. He looked like he didn't belong here. He felt like a smudge on clean glass. "Why did I agree to come?" he thought. "This isn't my world. I don't even look like a visitor here. I look like someone who's lost, or worse, begging to be let in." People walked around him like he was invisible, or worse, an inconvenience. Just then, Hina appeared, clicking the lock on her keys as she approached. "Rakesh? You're still outside." He straightened, forcing a smile. "Yeah, just waiting for you, that's all." She frowned slightly, sensing something off, but didn't press. The guard straightened and saluted as Hina passed. Without a word, he opened the gate for Rakesh now. Rakesh gave a tight smile, then followed Hina in. It didn't feel like he had been welcomed. It felt like he had been allowed in because of her. Continue. Inside, the lobby gleamed like a showroom. White marble floors, golden railings, and large potted plants. The scent of air fresheners and money filled the air. They entered the lift, and Rakesh stood silently beside her. His eyes took in the mirror-polished steel walls, the floor number screen glowing in a soft amber light. He didn't say a word. This place is a modern castle, he thought. And she's a princess. The kind who lives behind glass walls and gold doors. Me? I'm the kind of guy security doesn't even want to let near the gate. A jester wouldn't be allowed this close. The lift dinged. Her floor. She led him to the end of a plush-carpeted hallway, pulled out her keys, and pushed open the door. The inside was enough to make Rakesh stop breathing. A wide, tall hall opened up before him. The left wall was entirely made of glass, from floor to ceiling, looking out into a balcony where the city lights were starting to glow. A breeze stirred the white curtain by the edge. In the center, a long, pale gray sofa faced a sleek, giant flat-screen TV. A modern chandelier hung from the high ceiling, casting warm light on everything. To the right, in the same open space, was a large kitchen section, granite counters, a glowing induction stove, chrome and glass appliances. Hina tossed her bag on the sofa and went to the kitchen. "You want juice or something?" Rakesh didn't answer immediately. He stood still at the doorway. "You don't belong here." His mind was screaming. Each polished surface, each silent corner of that luxurious room told him the same story. This is her world, not yours. You're not even poor enough to call a peasant. You're not even close to her gates. You're just a mistake at the door. He stepped inside slowly, feeling like he was walking into a museum, not a home. A place like this didn't need someone like him tracking dust across the floor. And yet, there he was. And she, the princess, was pouring him juice in a crystal glass like it was the most natural thing in the world. Part 4. The past. The aroma of sautéed garlic and onions filled the luxurious apartment, blending with the faint sound of clinking cutlery and boiling water. Hina moved around the open kitchen with ease, barefoot, her hair loosely tied, sleeves rolled up. She looked like she belonged there, effortless and radiant even as she stirred a simmering pot. Rakesh sat stiffly at the dining table, shoulders hunched, eyes occasionally glancing toward the floor-to-ceiling glass window behind him, where the city twinkled far below them like a sky turned upside down. The table was set simply but neatly. 2 white ceramic plates, a bowl of steaming curry, chapatis stacked neatly, and a glass of water beside each plate. The ambient lights above cast a soft yellow glow, adding a golden sheen to everything, even the silence between them. "Here," Hina said, placing a plate in front of him with a gentle smile. "Fresh fulkas, just like my dad likes them." "Thanks," Rakesh muttered, not meeting her eyes. They ate in silence. The curry was spicy, the bread soft and warm, the food comforting, but Rakesh barely tasted it. His mouth chewed, his hands moved, but his mind was lost. Hina noticed. She kept sneaking glances at him while eating, her smile fading. His usual small talk was missing. His eyes didn't sparkle when he complimented her food like they usually did. He wasn't even trying to act relaxed anymore. Finally, she broke the silence. "What's going on?" she asked softly. Rakesh looked up, startled, like a child caught doing something wrong. "Hmm. You've barely said a word since we got here," she said, setting her fork down. "What happened?" He fumbled for a second, then quickly said, "I'm fine. Your food is so delicious, I forgot to tell you." He gave her a weak smile, the corners of his lips twitching as he tried to hold it in place. Hina tilted her head, unimpressed. "That's the worst lie you've told me." He looked back down at his plate. The eyes of the watchman from earlier stared back at him, reminder of worthlessness. A beat of silence passed. Then Hina asked, casually but with intention, "Tell me about your parents." Rakesh's fork stopped midair. "Oh, Mom makes great onion bhaji, especially on monsoon days," he said quickly, "and Baba, he still yells at the cow like it's going to understand him." He laughed a little, nervously. "You should see my village during Diwali. So many lights, you won't believe it." "Rakesh," Hina said firmly, putting her fork down and folding her hands on the table. He stopped. "Look into my eyes." Rakesh hesitated. She waited. Finally, he looked up. Their eyes locked. "What's wrong?" she asked again, this time slower. "And don't change the subject." Rakesh opened his mouth, closed it. His lips trembled slightly, like he was searching for a response somewhere deep in his chest, but found nothing. He stared at her like a deer caught in headlights, afraid, frozen. Then Hina said, her voice gentler now, "I love you, Rakesh." Rakesh blinked. The words hit him like a wave. "I love you too," he said, almost immediately, looking straight into her eyes. There was no hesitation in his tone. His voice cracked slightly at the end, as if those words had waited too long inside him. But Hina didn't smile. "Then why?" she asked, her voice tightening. "Are you still not sure about telling your parents?" Rakesh's lips parted, then closed again. His throat moved, like he wanted to swallow the question. "I just," he whispered, "I don't know." She leaned back in her chair, exhaling through her nose. Her eyes shimmered. "You don't know," she repeated. "You don't know." Rakesh looked at the floor again. He had no answers, no explanations, only the pressure in his chest, building like a dam cracking. "You say you love me," she continued, her voice shaking now, "but you can't even consider telling your family about us. What am I supposed to do with that love, Rakesh?" He looked at her, truly looked at her, arms folded to her chest now, holding herself like she was afraid she might fall apart. Her lips trembled. Tears formed in her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. "Not yet." Rakesh pushed his chair back and stood. Slowly, he walked over to her side of the table, kneeling down beside her. He didn't try to touch her. He simply placed his hand over his heart. "There is no one else," he said, voice barely a whisper. "There never will be. I promise you that, Hina. Only you. It's always been only you." Hina wiped a single tear that broke loose, but she didn't look at him. "I just don't know," he added, pain rising in his chest, "how my father is going to react." "Why?" she asked quietly. Rakesh stared at the floor. How was he supposed to tell her? The invisible distance only he has to cover, while stretched between two mountains, unknown to each other. His father and his love. Hina. The apartment was silent again. The city sparkled outside, cold and distant. Inside, Rakesh felt small, like a boy lost in a palace. Like a man carrying generations of invisible weight on his shoulders. But he couldn't say more. Because if he did, the dam would break. And he wasn't sure if he'd be able to build it back again. Part 5. The past continue. The evening sun hung low, painting the street in golden hues as Hina's car rolled to a gentle stop in front of the same old, two-story building. The soft hum of the engine died, and a warm breeze fluttered the loose strands of her hair as she unbuckled her seatbelt. This neighborhood, once unfamiliar and dusty, had slowly begun to feel like a second home, a quiet, comfort nestled in the heart of Kolhapur. As she stepped out of the car, the front door of the building creaked open, and out came Mr. Inamdar, climbing down the stairs with the slow, careful gait of someone who carried both age and dignity with grace. His white shirt fluttered slightly with the breeze, and his hands clutched a rolled-up newspaper under one arm. The moment his eyes landed on Hina, they lit up. "Oh well," he exclaimed with a rare smile. "Look who it is, Madam Architect herself." Hina grinned, genuinely pleased. Hello, Mr. Inamdar. She reached back into the car and pulled out a brown paper bag from the back seat. Wait a second, she said, holding up a finger. Mr. Inamdar raised an eyebrow in curiosity. From the bag, Hina took out a small rectangular box, neatly wrapped in soft blue paper with a ribbon tied around it. She handed it to him with a soft smile. What is this now? He asked, narrowing his eyes with playful suspicion. It's just a little something, Hina replied. An ink pen for solving your crossword puzzles. Rakesh told me you never miss a single day. Mr. Inamdar chuckled, touched. He carefully unwrapped the box, revealing a sleek fountain pen with a glossy finish and golden trim. He held it up, inspecting it under the soft light like it was a rare antique. Very nice, he said, clearly pleased. Hari said I'm a lucky old man, and today I believe it. Speaking of Hari, came a voice from the top of the stairs. Hari leaned over the railing with his trademark grin. You are a lucky man, Mr. Inamdar. No one ever gives me anything but bad looks. Everyone laughed, even Mr. Inamdar, who shook his head and pointed a finger at Hari. You deserve every one of those looks, he said with mock scolding. But I was just telling these boys upstairs, Rakesh and you, that you too, Hina, must come to my birthday party next time. It's tradition. You missed this time. Hina's eyes widened. Ah, yes. Rakesh told me about that, how you throw a party every year. That's why I brought the gift. I know I'm late, and I'm sorry for that. Late? Mr. Inamdar laughed heartily. You're young. You're allowed to be late. I stopped keeping track of time after I turned 70. With that, he gave her a soft pat on the shoulder and started walking down the path, his new pin already tucked into the front pocket of his shirt. Hina turned to Hari, her expression soft and curious. Where's Rakesh? Hari pointed to the first floor with his thumb. Up there, waiting for you like a well-trained puppy. He winked. Hina blushed, looking down with a shy smile as she tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. Everyone had started to accept her presence here. The neighbors, the building's quiet rhythms, even grumpy old Mr. Inamdar. No longer did she feel like an outsider or a guest. She had slowly, unintentionally, become part of their world. They didn't treat her like the polished city woman she was. They treated her like one of their own. Yet, in that very moment, behind the thin walls of the room upstairs, Rakesh sat in his chair, watching from the slatted window as everything unfolded below. He had seen the smile on Mr. Inamdar's face, the way he welcomed Hina so warmly, the lightness in Hari's teasing, and the casual way Hina blushed at his words. Rakesh should have felt joy, relief, even. This was what he always feared, how she might not fit in, how she might be rejected by the smallness of his world. But the opposite had happened. They liked her. They welcomed her. And yet, his heart felt heavier than ever. Because what they accepted was her, the wonderful, radiant, generous woman that Hina was. But what about her acceptance? He looked around at his room, the cracked wall above the cupboard, the single ceiling fan that rattled slightly, the old desktop that whirred with effort. This world was crumbling in comparison to hers. And in contrast, Hina was walking through it all like light through a dusty corridor, making everything seem cleaner and better just by being there. Rakesh's internal storm hadn't calmed. It had grown quieter, more dangerous. He could feel it in his chest, the slow crush of inadequacy. What if she woke up one day and saw the gap between their worlds more clearly than ever? What if the comfort she found now in these small things wore off, and she realized she didn't belong here? Or worse, what if he became the reason she felt stuck? So, when the door creaked and her footsteps echoed up the stairs, Rakesh stood up, fixed his collar, and tried to put on a smile. He needed to mask the conflict behind his eyes. Because even though everyone had accepted Hina as one of their own, Rakesh had yet to accept himself as someone who deserved her. He had started to fall in love with her more and more. Part 6. Continue. The old wooden staircase creaked under Hina's hurried steps as she made her way up. There was a buoyancy in her walk, a mix of warmth from Mr. Inamdar's kind smile and a teasing sense of embarrassment from Hari's comment. She clutched her purse close, brushing past the chipped green wall where someone had once scrawled a half-faded OM symbol in chalk. The faint scent of incense lingered in the corridor. Somewhere, a pressure cooker hissed in rhythm, mixing with the distant barking of dogs and the evening air thick with dust and cooking oil. As Hina pushed open the door to Rakesh's small rented room, the hinges gave their usual tired groan. Inside, Rakesh sat at his desk, slightly hunched over, his face lit by the pale glow of the monitor. The cluttered desk was the same as always: half-filled cups of chai, a tattered diary, a pen without a cap, and a few folded newspaper puzzles marked by Mr. Inamdar himself. But when Rakesh turned and saw Hina, his face brightened like someone had switched on a light within him. "You gave it to him?" he asked eagerly. "The gift." Hina smiled as she walked in, casually placing her bag near the bed. "Yes, he loved it. I told him it's a handmade ink pen from Europe." Rakesh blinked. "Handmade?" His voice tilted with genuine curiosity. "From Europe?" "Yep," Hina said as she sat on the edge of the bed, crossing her legs. "From a little town in Germany. They only make a few every year. It's pricey, but worth it for someone like him." There was a short pause. "How much?" Rakesh asked, now fully turned toward her. Hina told him. The words hit him like a slap. Rakesh's body froze. His lips parted, but no words came. His eyes widened, and instinctively, his hands went to his head as if trying to hold something from collapsing inside. "Hina, that's too much money," he said, his voice almost a whisper. Hina raised an eyebrow, confused. "It's Mr. Inamdar's birthday." "No, I mean," he stood up, gesturing as he looked at her. "Hina, that amount. I could pay my rent for 4 months with that." There was no anger in his voice, only disbelief, laced with that sinking feeling he'd known since childhood, the one that always reminded him he came from less. Hina blinked at him, not fully grasping the weight of what he just said. And then, without thinking, she muttered, "It's my money. Why do you care?" The words came sharp. Too sharp. A split second later, Hina saw the change in Rakesh. His chest lifted once as if he were about to speak, but he didn't. His face lost its light. His hands dropped to his sides. He turned away, as if looking at her had become unbearable. Hina immediately regretted it. She stepped forward, a gasp on her lips. "Rakesh." But he wasn't listening. Not because he didn't want to, but because he couldn't. Not now. Her words weren't just words. They had touched the deepest, rawest part of him. Yes, it's her money, he thought. She works for it. She earned it. She can buy whatever she wants, give gifts to whoever she wants. I have no say. Why would I? Because that was the truth, wasn't it? He was just a waiter in a dusty, crumbling town. He didn't belong to her world. He barely belonged to his own. Hina stepped closer, quietly reaching for his hand. Her fingers were soft, trembling a little as they wrapped around his. She could feel the pain in his grip, the stiffness of his palm. "Rakesh, I didn't mean that," she whispered. He turned his head slowly, eyes red but dry. There were no tears, just the look of someone holding a sea of them behind clenched teeth. "It's true," he said with a sad laugh, forcing a smile. "It's your money, after all. You can do whatever. I was just, I don't know, worried that maybe you'd get addicted to these shopaholic tendencies or something." He laughed again, louder this time, almost like a joke. And then, quickly, he turned and sat back at his desk. But Hina noticed the laugh was hollow. It died in the air before it could even breathe. His shoulders dropped the moment he sat down. His eyes fixed themselves on the screen like they were trying to disappear into it. She couldn't bear it. She walked behind him slowly and wrapped her arms around his neck, resting her cheek on his back. Her hands curled around his chest, kissing his neck gently, again and again. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I didn't mean it." Rakesh wanted to say something. He wanted to tell her to stop. That her touch, so warm, so loving, was making it worse. That every brush of her lips was like rubbing salt into the wound her words had left behind. But if he said that, then it would mean admitting he was hurt. That she had touched the very place he'd tried so hard to keep hidden. So he said nothing. "It's okay," he said instead, his voice a thin thread. "You don't have to apologize." But inside, the words kept repeating in his mind like a chant. "It's my money. Why do you care?" That one line echoed through him like a drumbeat of shame, like a truth he always feared and now had heard aloud. And with each echo, he hated himself a little more. He hated the poverty wrapped around his life like chains. He hated his inability to buy her a pen, let alone a future. He hated his own skin, his hands, his breath. Her touch, which once felt like heaven, now felt like a reminder that he didn't deserve her. Life beat him since he was born. If he ever got anything, people made him feel like he was unworthy of anything and everything he had. It was those feelings he had to live with that were trying to boil to the top. He wanted to say how much he loves her, he never wants to leave her. But his fear is because of the reality of his life up until now. What if she wants to leave me? What good can my love do if she's the one who gets sick of me? This fear started pushing Rakesh even further. But he didn't say a word. He just stared at the screen, pretending to work, pretending to be okay. And outside the room, the sun finally dipped below the buildings, taking the light with it. The end. Never meant to be. Social and romance novel. Written by Zen Raf. Available on KDP Amazon. Chapter 9. Part 1. The present day. In the restaurant. The faint sound of clinking cutlery and distant honks from the street beyond filled the restaurant like a dull backdrop. Inside, the atmosphere was stiff, like an overcast sky just before rain. Preeti was busy at the reception counter, flipping through the order receipts and jotting notes. But she could feel it. Eyes watching her. Not customers. Not the manager. Eyes that clung too long and too cold. Uttam. He had been lurking all morning, moving around the service area like he was looking for something or someone. He kept casting glances toward her, hiding behind casual tasks, pretending to fix a tilted chair or reposition a salt shaker. But he was waiting, watching, waiting for the moment she'd be alone. And then it came. Preeti excused herself quietly for a bathroom break. The hallway that led to the restroom was narrow, with faded peach paint peeling off the edges and the sour-sweet smell of dampness clinging to the air. She washed her hands and splashed her face, trying to shake off the growing unease. As she stepped out of the restroom and turned the corner, her breath hitched. Uttam stood leaning against the wall just outside the bathroom, arms folded, eyes fixed on her like a predator waiting in ambush. Preeti stopped mid-step. Her pulse quickened. Uttam, hey, she said softly, her voice trying to sound casual, but her fingers nervously fidgeted with the edge of her clothes. Uttam took a step forward, narrowing the little space between them in the already tight corridor. Why were you late today? He asked, his voice low, slow, too deliberate to be friendly. Preeti gave him a nervous smile, trying to walk past, keeping her tone light. Just got caught up in the crowd outside. You know how it is, traffic, people. With Rakesh, Uttam cut her off, shifting slightly to block her path. You came in with him. Preeti's smile froze for a beat. It's nothing. We just ran into each other outside the restaurant. But when she tried to step past again, Uttam moved ever so slightly to block her way. Why were you both late? He asked, his tone darker now. Preeti's eyes darted around. Her throat tightened. She took a half step back, clutching her dupatta tighter, searching for something, anything, to help her out of this moment. And then, like sunlight through storm clouds, came the sound of Rakesh's voice from the end of the hallway. Preeti, he called. Preeti turned immediately, relief pouring across her face. Her body jolted in his direction like a spring being released. Rakesh was standing near the kitchen entrance, wiping his hands on a cloth. His eyes briefly passed over Uttam before resting on her. Go back to the counter, he said, calm but firm. Preeti nodded and hurried past Uttam, who didn't say a word. She didn't dare look back. Uttam, still standing in that narrow corridor, turned his gaze toward Rakesh. The two men locked eyes for a moment, tense and unspeaking. Rakesh didn't break eye contact, didn't flinch. Then he turned and walked back into the kitchen. Uttam stood still for a long second, jaw tight, the muscles in his face twitching. Rakesh didn't say a word, just a glance to meet later. Later, the lunch break came. In the back alley behind the restaurant, a few broken crates leaned against the soot-stained wall. The air smelled of stale masala, hot oil, and discarded leftovers. A single exhaust fan above buzzed like an agitated bee. Rakesh stood there, pacing, his arms crossed, lips pressed into a tight line. His eyes kept flicking toward the back door as if willing it to open. His foot tapped a nervous rhythm against the concrete. Finally, the door cracked. Uttam stepped out, wiping his hands on a towel, descending the steps with the slowness of someone who knew a confrontation was waiting. Rakesh turned to face him, fire in his eyes. We need to talk, Rakesh said. Rakesh wanted to respect Preeti's wishes and let the matter die, considering nothing happened the way she put it, but Rakesh's consciousness wouldn't let him be at peace. Nothing happened yet, so doesn't that mean I'm supposed to wait until it does? Uttam raised an eyebrow. About what? About what happened that night. when Preeti stayed at my place. Uttam scoffed. You still on about that? Rakesh stepped forward. She showed up at my door, distressed, at midnight, crying her heart out because you scared her so much. Uttam shrugged. I don't remember anything. That's the problem. Rakesh snapped. You don't remember anything, but you scare her, stalk her, show up in her face like some lunatic. I wasn't stalking her. Uttam tried to defend himself, voice rising. You scared her, Rakesh repeated, quieter now, but deadlier. You made her feel unsafe. Uttam's nostrils flared. Why do you care so much, huh? What's she to you? Rakesh leaned closer, just inches from Uttam's face. His voice dropped to a whisper. She told me something, Uttam. Uttam's eyes flickered. She said she feels safer with me than with anyone else in this world. Rakesh let that sentence hang in the air. Then he stepped back, turned on his heel, and walked back toward the restaurant, pushing the door open. Uttam stood frozen, the words crawling into his ears like smoke. She feels safer with me than anyone else in this world. They echoed, burned, and stabbed. Something ugly twisted in Uttam's chest. He clenched his jaw, his fists, and behind his eyes, a storm was beginning to churn. Part 2. The past, outside the store, inside Hina's car. Rakesh sat in the passenger seat of Hina's car, nervously drumming his fingers against his thigh. Unnoticed, through the tinted glass, his eyes were fixed on the store across the street. Its white marble exterior glistened under the afternoon sun, clean and untouched like something from a dream, or a place not meant for people like him. The store's name was in soft gold cursive etched on a black glass panel above the door, Maison Delon. Even the name sounded rich. The glass doors slid open and shut with grace every time someone walked in or out. Mostly posh women in chiffon saris or men with watches that probably cost more than Rakesh's yearly salary. Inside, everything was pale wood, golden lighting, and neatly dressed staff with perfect posture and expressions frozen in mild disinterest. Rakesh swallowed hard. This store," he began, hesitant. "It looks pretty fancy." Hina, seated beside him in a crisp white shirt and wide-legged beige trousers, didn't look at the store. She was touching up her lipstick using the mirror on the sun visor. "It's a designer boutique," she said casually, like she was talking about a tea stall. Designer boutique. Rakesh felt a small knot twist in his stomach. He opened his mouth again, almost asking, "Won't it be expensive? Are you sure we should?" But the memory of their last argument, her words, sharp and full of pride, flashed in his mind. "It's my money. Why do you care?" she had snapped once. He clenched his jaw and looked away. He nodded. "Okay." Inside, the cool air and subtle lavender fragrance were a sharp contrast to the heat outside. Rakesh stepped in behind Hina, instantly shrinking under the weight of invisible judgment. The receptionist at the front desk gave him a fleeting glance, her eyes gliding over his plain shirt and scuffed sandals before returning to her screen. A man arranging ties near a shelf paused mid-fold, briefly watching Rakesh like someone inspecting a misplaced object. Another staff member walked past, smiling politely at Hina, then letting his expression drop as his eyes flicked to Rakesh. No one said anything, but Rakesh heard everything in their silence. Still, Hina walked ahead as if the store belonged to her. Then, without warning, she turned and held Rakesh's arm with both hands, pressing it close to her chest like they were in a romance movie. "Come on," she beamed. "Men's section is this way." Rakesh tried to keep up, his feet stiff, heartbeat louder with every step. They reached the men's section, sleek racks of tailored blazers, pastel shirts with crisp collars, and fabric that looked too smooth to touch. A young salesgirl in a black pencil skirt and name tag walked over. Her smile widened as she approached Hina. "Ma'am," she said, her voice silky, "what can I show you today?" "Shirts and suits for him," Hina said brightly, gesturing toward Rakesh. The girl's eyes flicked to him, her smile shrinking just a bit. "Of course," she said with tight lips. Then she turned to her colleague behind the counter, whispered something. Both girls shared a brief, knowing look. One of them gave Rakesh the kind of glance people usually save for beggars who overstayed their welcome near cafes. Rakesh felt it, sharp and cold, but Hina was still in her own world. She pulled out a linen blazer and held it up to him. "Try this. This blue would look amazing on you." Rakesh looked at the price tag. 8,900. His throat went dry. Another salesgirl appeared with a set of shirts and offered them to Rakesh without looking at his face. Trial rooms are that way, she muttered, already turning away. Rakesh tried on 2 shirts and a blazer. He didn't even look in the mirror. He just wanted to get out of the clothes, out of the store, out of this whole absurd situation. When he stepped out of the trial room, Hina was still browsing. Maybe try something casual now, she said. Wait here, I'll ask them. Rakesh watched as she walked off to speak with the salesgirls. They all laughed softly at something she said, and Rakesh wondered for a moment if they were laughing at him. He felt like everyone was looking at him anyway, just like everyone feels when they break free from their boundaries. He turned to a nearby rack, hoping to look useful. His eyes fell on a pale gray shirt, simple, elegant, and modest. No embroidery, no glitter, just clean lines. He reached out and touched the sleeve. The material felt soft but sturdy. It looked affordable. He turned toward a nearby salesgirl, the only one not chatting, and asked with his most polite voice, can I try this one? The girl, who had been rearranging a pile of folded trousers, glanced at him and wrinkled her nose. She took a step back, folded her arms. That one, she said with a half smile that didn't reach her eyes. That's from the Asteria line. It's 5,000. You won't be able to buy that. Rakesh blinked. Her tone hadn't been cruel, but it had been certain, cold. Like she knew exactly who he was. Like she'd seen thousands like him. Men, a leech, who walked in with rich girls, pretending to belong. He stood there for a moment, his hand still on the shirt. Then he pulled it back, and with all the strength he had left, stretched a smile across his face, an empty, hollow thing. Ah, okay. Just checking. He turned, slowly walking back toward where Hina was. And then he stopped. It was Hind. She was looking at him. Not just looking, staring. Hina's jaw was tight, her eyes darkened with quiet rage. She had seen everything, heard everything. Her lips parted slowly, and when her gaze shifted to the salesgirl behind him, it wasn't just anger. It was fury, elegant and simmering. Rakesh froze, still clutching his fake smile, not knowing if Hina had heard anything. If so, then how much? But inside, his chest pounded with something he hadn't expected. Not shame, not fear. Shameful hope. Part 3. The past continue. The cabin was larger than Rakesh's entire house back in Kolhapur. The walls were textured in soft ivory with gold trimming near the ceiling. A large glass desk sat at the center, minimalistic and polished to a shine, behind which the store owner, a graceful woman in her mid-50s with a pearl necklace and high cheekbones, sat like a queen on her throne. Hina was seated opposite her, legs crossed, posture relaxed, but eyes still holding a trace of fire. Rakesh sat beside Hina, stiff and silent, his hands folded on his lap, staring down at the spotless floor. The owner had greeted Hina with warm familiarity the moment they entered. Miss Vibhut, it's always a pleasure, she had said with a warm smile that never reached his side of the room. She hadn't so much as glanced at Rakesh. He noticed, every second of it. But at this point, he didn't even feel the sting. His heart had already been poked and bruised so many times in the last hour, it had gone numb. He just wanted to leave. Leave the fake smiles, the silent judgment, the glimmering glass shelves, everything. I really didn't expect such behavior from your staff, Hina was saying now, her tone clipped and clear. That girl, what was her name? Nita? She told my boyfriend that a shirt was too expensive for him to buy. Can you imagine how insulting that is? First, the surprise on the woman's face. Not at Hina's complaint, but the fact that she called the insignificant existence sitting next to Hina boyfriend. Rakesh was the only one who noticed it, considering it wasn't the first time for him with that type of look. The owner nodded slowly, her smile fading into a mask of concern. That is extremely disappointing and not at all reflective of our brand's values. I'll speak to her immediately. As if on cue, Nita, the salesgirl, stood a few feet away from the glass door, shoulders tense, eyes lowered. Her hands were clasped in front of her as though she were bracing for a storm. What gave you the right to decide who can afford what? Hina asked, turning to her now. You work here to assist customers, not to judge them. Rakesh could hear the pride in Hina's voice. Not anger on his behalf, but on hers. She sounded more offended that someone had questioned the ability of someone she chose to be with, rather than acknowledging what Rakesh had felt. He lowered his eyes again. I, I'm sorry, ma'am, Nita said, eyes flickering up, just once at Hina, never at him. The owner finally cut in, her voice still calm, but sharper now. That kind of attitude could lose us customers, Nita. Whether someone is in slippers or Gucci loafers, it is not your job to assess their wallet. Your job is to serve them gracefully. Somehow, the way the owner said that felt like an underhanded slap on Rakesh's face. Yes, ma'am, Nita whispered. Hina folded her arms and leaned back, a little satisfied. I hope she remembers that. The owner smiled again, thin and diplomatic. Of course, and we'll compensate you for the inconvenience. My assistant will provide some vouchers before you leave. Please, accept them with our apologies. 2 hours later, the golden sun had shifted lower, softening the heat in the air as Hina and Rakesh returned to the car. Shopping bags filled the back seat, shirts, blazers, a box of luxury cufflinks, and a crisp white envelope with gift vouchers lay on the dashboard. Hina sighed as she got behind the wheel. At least they gave us something. Those vouchers will come in handy later. She paused, biting her lower lip. God, I was so pissed back there. I mean, who says something like that to a customer? Rakesh didn't answer. He was still sinking into the seat, the soft hum of the car's air conditioning brushing his skin while his thoughts drowned deeper inside. He wanted to say, it's not about the shirt. He wanted to say, I'm tired, Hina. This world of yours, it swallows me. He wanted to say, I don't belong there, and I don't think you even saw how they looked at me. But he didn't, though Hina seemed inconsiderate of his feelings. If it were him, he would have left the shop, designer or not. He wouldn't have crossed the door of that store ever again if they were to disrespect Hina like that. But Hina didn't even understand how it made him feel. She was happy because they gave her some free things for the inconvenience. Instead, Hina's tone softened. She turned to look at him. Hey, I'm sorry, she said quietly, for everything. I didn't mean for today to go like that. Rakesh turned to her, and as always, as if something inside him had a switch labeled "Don't upset her," he smiled. A gentle, practiced smile that had become his armor. It's fine, he said. No, really. You were so quiet. I thought maybe you were upset with me. He shook his head. It's not your fault. That was a lie. It was partly her fault. But he couldn't say that. Not when she looked so genuinely sorry. Hina leaned over and placed a hand on his, squeezing it gently. Thanks for being patient. You're sweet, Rakesh. He nodded again, forcing the smile to stay even as something small and heavy curled up quietly inside his chest. She started the car, humming a soft tune under her breath, already shifting gears in her mind to the next stop, the next plan, the next dress to try. And Rakesh, seatbelt fastened, heart weighed down, stared out the window. In shame of humiliation, he just faced, fastened in the same place. Not at the buildings or people, but at his own faint reflection on the glass. And he wondered, not for the first time, if there would ever be a place where he didn't have to smile through being invisible. Part 4. The past. The soft tap of keys echoed through the quiet room as Rakesh worked on his aging desktop computer. The ceiling fan above made a low, rhythmic creak, swinging slightly as it pushed warm air around. His back was straight, eyes locked on the screen, lines of code or numbers floating before him in dull concentration. The noise outside, scooters, kids yelling, and the honk of rickshaws, was faint behind the closed window. Then came the sudden interruption. The metal door creaked open with no knock. I swear to God, you're insane, Hurry's voice rang out from the hallway. No, listen. I loved it. Seriously. The paintings? I felt like I was in Paris or some shit. Rakesh winced. Hari entered the room still on his phone, his hair messy from the wind, a light pink shirt half unbuttoned over his tight jeans. He walked in like he owned the place, phone wedged between shoulder and ear, hands free to gesture animatedly. Yeah, babe, and the watch? Damn. Everyone noticed it already. I can't stop checking the time, he laughed, flashing the fancy, metallic blue-faced watch at Rakesh with a flourish. Rakesh didn't even try to hide his annoyance. He looked up from the computer, brows furrowed. Hari caught the expression and, smirking, turned his head to face Rakesh and flipped him a casual middle finger without breaking his stride. Okay, talk later, sweetheart. You're the best. Love ya. He hung up and dropped onto Rakesh's bed like a man who had just returned from a battlefield of love. So, he said, stretching his arms. Where the hell were you the day before yesterday? Rakesh sighed, saved his work, and swiveled in his chair to face him. You were busy dating half of Kolhapur, he said flatly. Didn't think you'd even notice. Hari chuckled. True, true. Things got serious with that girl from Panhala. Museum dates, bro. I'm telling you, I'm evolving. Rakesh leaned forward slightly. Can I ask you something? Shoot. How do you manage it, he asked. All these girls, the rich ones especially. Don't you ever feel it's too much? Hari raised an eyebrow. Too much? What do you mean? I mean. Rakesh hesitated, then reached forward and gently took Hari's wrist, lifting it just enough to look at the new watch. He tilted it under the yellow bulb light, watching it catch a faint shimmer as he spoke. I went with Hina to some fancy designer store. The whole place looked like it was made of marble and attitude. Hari grinned. Nice. Rakesh didn't smile back. She didn't even notice I was uncomfortable the whole time, Rakesh said quietly. The salesgirl humiliated me. The store owner ignored me. Hina got angry. Yeah, but it felt more about her pride than me. Man, she talked about loving. And when we left, I ended up comforting her. Hari's smirk faded, replaced by a slight squint of concern. He sat up straighter. I don't know, Hari, Rakesh said, still looking at the ticking watch. Maybe I'm not cut out for her world. She doesn't get it. She doesn't see me, not really. I just keep smiling, pretending it's all okay. There was a long pause. Hari finally spoke. You know what I think, Raku? Girls like Hina, they want to own guys like us. Rakesh's head snapped up. That's not fair. Hey, hey. Hari held up his hands. I didn't say she's a bad person. Just think about it. If she really cared about you, you think she wouldn't notice your discomfort? Come on, man. Women feel everything. She probably didn't notice because I hid it well, Rakesh muttered, defensive. Hari chuckled, a knowing smile creeping in. Bro, you're not that good. Believe me, I juggle women like a magician with burning swords. It's damn near impossible to fool them. Their brains? Different level. Calculators, lie detectors, emotion readers, all in one package. Rakesh frowned. I'm not saying she doesn't love you, Hari added gently. But also, let's be real. She's rich, gorgeous, well-connected, on top, only child. Why would someone like her pick someone like you? Try to figure that out. Try not to take yourself seriously. I took myself seriously. Probably women don't like it when men they're with take themselves seriously. I'm the proof. I stopped and look at me now. I got hurt. When I used to think of myself seriously, wanted family and shit, but then I realized. I can't be a father, woman can be a mother. With whomever. But me? Nope. Hari poured his heart out with fake laughter, which disappeared as fast as it appeared. A long, realistic pause between two men in the same boat on different edges. Just saying, don't ever expect much from anyone. If you rely on others' actions to make you happy, then sadness is what you will get. And we can't really expect anything from anyone anyway. Just be happy for what you get to have for however long you get to have it. Then move on. Hari had leaned back, looking at the ceiling. There was a pain in his words, the hopelessness of a man who was never in control. Rakesh never saw Hari being so deep, so raw, so honest, and most of all, behind that playful, careless, greedy exterior, so vulnerable. I'm sorry, man. I'm stupid. Every woman is different. But still, one thing is true, though, to us men, nothing belongs to us. Nothing. Don't expect too much from anyone. You will be happier. Just remember that. Hari stood up and reached for the watch. Thanks for listening, he said, embarrassed by what he lectured Rakesh about, strapping it back onto his wrist. Anyway, good luck, bro. You'll need it. Hina's richer than all the girls I've ever dated combined. She can have anyone she wants. With that, he gave Rakesh a friendly pat on the shoulder and walked out, humming to himself. The door closed with a dull thud. Rakesh sat still for a moment. Then, slowly, he pushed himself up and walked over to the bed. He lay down, arms stretched across the mattress, staring up at the water-stained ceiling. The fan blade spun slowly above him, creaking with every rotation. He closed his eyes. And there it was again, her smile. Her eyes lit up in that cafe. The way she rested her head on his shoulder in the car. The time she called him sweet and ruffled his hair. Was any of it real? His chest tightened, not with pain, but something duller. Disappointment, maybe. Doubt. A seed, quietly taking root in the shadowed corners of his heart. Part 5. The Present. The metallic clink of chairs being stacked echoed in the half-dark restaurant. A few faint light bulbs flickered above, casting long shadows across the empty floor. Rakesh moved methodically, aligning each chair with its table, his mind half lost in a daze. It had been a long day, but he preferred this. Quiet, alone, no one to question his silences. Just as he bent down to adjust a crooked leg on one of the chairs, a presence behind him made him freeze. "You and Preeti came together this morning," Uttam's voice cut through the quiet, low and dry. Rakesh straightened slowly but didn't turn around. He resumed fixing the next table as if he hadn't heard anything. Uttam stood with his arms crossed, his jaw clenched. "I saw that," he said, stepping closer. "You think I'm blind?" Before Rakesh could respond, the cabin door creaked open. Mr. Main emerged, adjusting his wristwatch. "Close up properly. Lock the front and the side door. Both of you." His tone was curt, already halfway to his car. "Yes, sir," they said in unison, and the door shut behind him with a final thud. Rakesh turned to go to the changing room, deliberately brushing past Uttam. But Uttam followed him, too close, too persistent. Inside the small changing room, Rakesh opened his locker. The room smelled of old deodorant, metal, and faint sweat. Uttam leaned on the adjacent locker, arms still crossed, watching. "Answer me, man. Why were you with her?" Rakesh stayed quiet, grabbing his bag and his shirt. "Fine," Uttam muttered, pushing Rakesh's shoulder roughly. "Play dumb. That's what you're good at." Rakesh held still, but when Uttam shoved him again, a spark finally lit inside him. He turned sharply, caught Uttam's wrist midair, and twisted it. With a swift motion, he shoved Uttam backward, sending him sprawling to the floor. The sound of his fall echoed with a metallic clatter. Uttam looked up, dazed. "I don't want to fight," Rakesh said through clenched teeth, panting. "But don't push me. I'm not in the mood today." Rakesh turned to leave, but Uttam, full of resentment, reached for Rakesh's ankle. The next second, Rakesh crashed onto the floor with a loud thud, barely missing the lockers. Pain shot through his elbow. "You!" Rakesh cried out, scrambling to free his foot. His instincts took over, and his boots slammed into Uttam's face. The sole connected with a harsh, muffled smack. Uttam collapsed backward, groaning. Breathing heavily, Rakesh looked up and remembered. The hallway. The CCTV. He stepped out quickly into the hall, out of frame. Uttam remained sitting, leaning against the wall, wiping the blood from the corner of his lip. Rakesh stood over him, calming himself. "I could have done worse," he said coldly. "But I didn't. Because of Preeti. Get your act together, Uttam." Uttam didn't reply, just stared at the floor, breathing hard, raged at his own defeat. Rakesh looked at his frustrated figure for a moment, then slung his bag over his shoulder and walked away. Continue. The night air hit his face like a splash of cold water. The streets were quiet, the city winding down. A few vehicles passed by under the orange streetlights as he walked slowly toward the bus stop. He couldn't shake the images from earlier. Uttam's grip, the fall, the locker, the blood. "I should ask Maine for an early shift," Rakesh muttered to himself. "For both of us. Preeti and I. He is getting violent." He turned the corner near the bus stop. A few people sat on the bench, half asleep. A dog yawned under a parked scooter. Rakesh stopped a little distance away, still pacing in his head. "Rakesh," a soft voice called. He turned. Preeti sat on the bench, her palms wrapped around her knees. She looked tired, but her smile was gentle. "You okay?" she asked as he walked over. "Yeah," he said, forcing a smile. "Just tired." They talked casually about work. Who messed up the orders, how loud the kitchen got today, how the boss nearly exploded over a broken plate. "Oh, you remember Mr. Inamdar's birthday, right?" Rakesh said. "Right." She perked up. "We need to get something." "Maybe a shawl," Rakesh said thoughtfully. "He loves those soft cashmere ones." Preeti smiled, then hesitated. The silence that followed was awkward, heavy. "Hey," she said softly, looking at the pavement. "Today, when I was organizing papers on your desk, I accidentally saw a photo." Rakesh frowned. She continued quickly. "It was in your drawer. A girl in a pretty dress. I wasn't snooping, I swear. It just happened." Rakesh's shoulders loosened, and he let out a breath. "That was Hina," he said quietly. Preeti blinked. "Hina, is that?" My wife, he said, voice suddenly heavy. Well, my ex-wife. The words wrapped around Preeti like cold mist. Would you mind telling me something about her? If you don't, then it's fine. It's just, I'm the only one who doesn't know anything about her. Everyone keeps talking about how pretty she was. That's all. Rakesh looked up at the sky. Well, she was unlike anyone I'd ever met. Smart, confident, bit dramatic too, he chuckled faintly. She had this laugh, loud, contagious. And when she smiled, it was like everything else faded. Preeti sat frozen, the air knocked out of her lungs. Something inside her ached, but she didn't understand why. Not yet. She always wanted to fix everything, Rakesh went on. Even when I didn't ask. That was just her. She made the world feel bigger for me. And I still don't know how I lost her. His voice cracked just slightly at the end. Preeti looked down, blinking hard. A distant rumble approached. Rakesh looked up. Your bus, he said softly. Preeti nodded and stood. Her face had changed. The way Rakesh talks about Hina, he never talks about anyone. Preeti felt jealous. Her usual calmness was gone, replaced by something unreadable, frozen, distant. Rakesh noticed but didn't understand. She climbed aboard silently. From the back window, she looked out. Rakesh stood at the bus stop, still. Their eyes met. For a long moment, neither of them smiled. The bus moved away, Preeti still watching. And Rakesh is still wondering. Part 6. The present, continue. The bus jerked lightly as it made its way through the dimly lit streets of Kolhapur. Rakesh sat near the window, his eyes dull, almost expressionless, staring out at the dark blur of passing houses and trees. The air inside the bus smelled faintly of dust and old vinyl. His hands rested on his lap, loosely clasped, silent, like him. But his mind was elsewhere. Hina. The name echoed in his head like a soft bell. Again and again. By the time the bus halted near his stop, the street had emptied. He got down quietly and walked the familiar route to his room, head slightly lowered, the night air brushing his cheeks. It was cooler now, silent except for the occasional bark of stray dogs or the buzz of a scooter zipping by in the distance. As he unlocked his door and stepped in, the stillness of his tiny room greeted him like an old companion. With barely a glance at the switchboard, he turned on the single bulb in the corner. A dull white glow filled the space. Rakesh didn't remove his shoes. His eyes immediately went to the framed photo sitting on the narrow shelf above his desk. He walked to it, picked it up. It was an old photo, faded only slightly, but the smile on Hina's face still burned bright. She was beside him, her long hair cascading over her shoulder, eyes gleaming, as if someone had caught them in the middle of a private joke. Hina's tender kiss on the edge of Rakesh's lips. Rakesh, in the photo, looked unsure but happy. Young, a bit unburdened. He sat on the edge of the bed and just stared at the picture, holding the frame carefully in both hands. His thumb stroked the glass over Hina's face, slow and tender, as if brushing strands of real hair from her forehead. A small breath escaped him. The corners of his eyes shimmered. He lay back on the bed, the photo still in his arms, pressed close to his chest. His eyes closed slowly, like he was hugging her. The past. The same room, younger by a few years. The same bulb. The same furniture. But back then, laughter still lived in the corners. Hina sat sideways on Rakesh's worn-out desk chair, her long legs swinging lightly, while her fingers twirled the hem of her kurta absent-mindedly. The phone was pressed to her ear. Papa, when are you coming? She asked with a playful drawl. Her voice was a mix of demand and charm. A faint voice crackled through the speaker, her father's. Soon, Beta. A lot of work piled up, but I'll visit when I come for business next month. You keep saying that, Hina pouted. Promise me you'll actually come this time. I promise, her father replied, a little indulgent, a little distracted. Just then, the door creaked open. Rakesh entered, carrying 2 paper-wrapped food packets. He saw her on the phone, her back turned to him, face lit by the soft orange of the window's evening light. He smiled to himself, didn't speak, quietly placed the food on the bed and stretched out beside it. The day had been long, and her voice, though not addressed to him, soothed something inside. After a few more exchanges, Hina ended the call. She turned around and blinked in surprise. Oi, when did you come? Rakesh remained motionless, pretending to be asleep. Hina narrowed her eyes. A mischievous smile crept across her lips. Quietly, she tiptoed to the bed, her feet barely making a sound against the floor. She lowered herself beside him and leaned in close to his face. Suddenly, slurp, a long, exaggerated lick on his cheek. Rakesh's eyes flew open. Hey, are you crazy? Hina burst out laughing, her hands clapping over her mouth. You were pretending. Obviously, he grumbled, wiping his cheek, but he was already laughing too. Who does that? You look too peaceful. Had to do something to ruin it, she teased, poking his ribs. Rakesh got up and began opening the food packets. Let's eat. I got your favorite. No onions. She clapped once. Ooh, thank you, husband of the year. Hina's wishful thinking of being his wife. Don't push it. Rakesh brought her to reality. They sat cross-legged, facing each other on the bed, with stainless steel plates resting on a folded newspaper. As they started eating, Rakesh asked, That call? It was your dad? Hina nodded between bites. Yeah, he said he's coming to visit next month. For business. Rakesh's spoon paused midway. Here? To Kolhapur. Yep. Rakesh didn't respond immediately. He focused on his food, but his chewing had slowed. Hina noticed. Don't get all nervous, okay? She said, with a tone meant to reassure. He won't bite. Rakesh smiled, half-hearted. He's your father, and I've seen his photos. Always wearing a suit, with that beard and those fancy glasses. He looks like he reads English newspapers and corrects grammar in his sleep. Huh, maybe, but he's not as scary as he looks. Rakesh poked at his sabzi. Suddenly, Hina's voice turned high and whiny. Why is there garlic in this? I told you I hate garlic. Rakesh leaned over, picked the clove out from her plate, and set it aside on the edge of the newspaper. There, there. Emergency averted. She grinned and continued eating. But Rakesh stayed quiet. He kept thinking about that picture, the one Hina showed him of Hina's father's, wearing that tight smile in a gray suit, holding a wine glass at some banquet. Everything about him seemed like a world away from Rakesh's own. From this tiny room, from his low salary, from his second-hand phone, and everyday mundaneness. Hina caught the worry on his face. She didn't say anything. Instead, she leaned forward, brushed a crumb from his chin, and whispered, Everything's going to be okay. And somehow, just from that, it felt like it would be. The end.